Shabbat Shalom. It's nice to be with you this evening. We are going to begin by saying how nice it is to be together with Hine Matov Umanaim on page 10 of our prayer books.
Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim 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 Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Hine Matov, ya la la, ya la 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 la. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Umanayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad.
We turn to our candle lighting on page 2, and it's my privilege to invite Tim Littman and Julie Arnheim to the Bima in honor of their birthdays. Tim's, who's yesterday, and Julie's is next week.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'hadlak ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We continue with Shalom Aleichem. We welcome in the Shabbat Messengers of Peace on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Noachem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom,
Continue welcoming Shabbat, Kabbalat Shabbat on page 13, the second paragraph of Hebrew. Yismechu hashamayim, the heavens, let the heavens rejoice.
Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam umelo. 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 Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz.
Continue with Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain. God will give strength to our people. That's on page 19, the end of Psalm 29, page 19.
Adonai Oz, le'amo yitein. Adonai yevarech et amo. 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 Adonai Oz, le'amo yitein. Adonai yevarech et amo.
Turn the page. Lecha Dodi, we've welcomed in Shabbat angels, we've welcomed in Shabbat with light, and now we welcome in the Shabbat presence, Lecha Dodi, singing paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we get to 9, we rise, turn in our places, and greet the Shabbat presence.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha שבת נקבלה, שאמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המאוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please take this opportunity to now, once we've welcomed in Shabbat, to welcome one another, to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. Maybe introduce yourself to someone that you haven't met before. We'll continue our conversations immediately following services. Right now, we'll continue on page 22 with Sadiq Tamar. It's a psalm for Shabbat, in the middle of the page. Sadiq Tamar, the righteous bloom like a date palm. Page 26, Chetzi Kaddish.
Yid gadol ve'yid kadosh shemeg rabba.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach yutzei ve'amlich mochutei. B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, u'bizman kariv ve'imeru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam olam le'olaya. Yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitzva'ar v'yiromam v'yitnaseh v'yitador v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemere kudesha b'richu le'ela mikol b'yachata v'shirata tush v'chata v'nechemata tamiram b'yama v'yimeru. Amen.
Please rise for Baruch Hu and rise in body or spirit as you're able. Page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma potech she'arim, uv'tvuna meshana itim, mechalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kertzono, borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo. Echai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu, uvkumenu na'asioch b'shukecha, v'nizmach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yomeinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, nege yomam v'layla. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated. Continuing on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך ובצאתך בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On page 39, we read together. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Micha Mocha on page 40. V'ne'amar ki fada Adonai Yaakov galo miyad chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai Gaal Yisrael.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim.
Hashkivenu, we ask God to spread over us a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace, like a blanket at night in times of when we're afraid. Nighttime, historically, is very dark, and metaphorically, it's a time sometimes of fear, feel lonely, afraid, unsure of ourselves. And so we ask God to shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of gentle, protective wings. So that's our prayer for all of us as the night falls or begins to fall. We also especially think of the members of our community, our family, our friends who are in need of healing at this time. We ask God to spread over them maybe just a little extra Sukkot Shalom, a comforting blanket of healing. Tonight we hold in our hearts Ira Altshuler, Batya Bat Yosefa V'Shimon, Les Berkowitz, Alex Botkin, Ann Fay, Ken Franklin, Aryaman Harlalka, David Mordechai HaKohen, Linda Jube, Naum Kaplan, Carol Kaufman, Al Camper, Todd Cart, Lee Kramer, Susan Lothar, Hinda Sarabat Chana Pearl, Sophie Matiash, Joanne Mandel, Ken Markison, B.G. Morrison, Joanne Newman, Lev Podorovsky, Cooper Saul Roberts, Jonathan Robeson, Jason Roney, Mike Rosen, Oliver Scheibel, Howard Schumann, John Spear, Bill Stein, Jan Stoller, Jackie Student, Helen Marie Tyree, David Wallach, and Alan Wilk. Are there any other names for Misha Barak tonight? Misha Barak Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill.
Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah, atah Adonai, haborei sukkot shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
And on page 44, we sing together V'Shamru. We remember the covenant that we have with God. Part of it is to have this day of rest and renewal and refreshment, a day of Shabbat. V'Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'toret ha'merit olam. Beni uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'toret ha'merit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'toret ha'merit olam. U'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, le'toret ha'merit olam. Come now to Tefillah. We begin with the opening meditation on page 46. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able.
Adonai sevatei tiftach ufi agit tehilatecha. Adonai Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotzeinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozeh U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav le'Roshia, Morid atah, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umechayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom Eloch, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. Please continue the silent prayer, or continue the tefillah silently yourselves from pages 54 through page 62, following in the Hebrew or the English or in the direction of your own heart. So I talk a lot about my dog, but I also have a cat. You can have a seat. I mean, I used to have a cat. I had a cat named Ruby, who's probably 20, and she's been living in foster home since last November. And when she first went into the hospital, they call it senior hospice. It's two young women who took in our cat. And they told us that they were going to move to Mexico, and that when they moved to Mexico, we were going to get Ruby back. And all we could think was, maybe Ruby won't still be alive when they move to Mexico. Because I'm a huge animal lover, but this is a huge problem. My cat, this small, teeny little cat like this that weighs probably 4 pounds or 3 pounds, is a huge problem for us. So these wonderful young women decided that they would take Ruby with them to Mexico. So Ruby is now on her way to Mexico as we speak. She likes to sit by the window in their apartment, so they took the little window seat with them so she could sit on the whole journey to Mexico. But as we were there to say goodbye, we went to say goodbye to Ruby, one of the young women asked me, as they're on their way to Mexico, she said to me, "What would it take for you? What do you think would be the straw that would break the camel's back that would make you think that you had to move out of Pennsylvania?" And I actually had never thought of that particularly, although I did say with all seriousness that if then President Obama was assassinated by a racist, I would leave. So her question took me by surprise. And after a few moments of kind of mumbling and thinking about it, I said that I think it would have to be some kind of right-wing Christian takeover of our human rights, like the reversal of marriage equality, or abortion rights completely disappear, or reproductive rights in general, or civil and human rights for members of protected classes. Or if we started carrying out the death penalty that is legal in the Commonwealth, I would have second thoughts about living here as well. When I think about my answers, they all connect to my fear of religious fanaticism and the zealots who try to enforce this kind of fanaticism. Interesting that the question was posed to me this week, the week we read about Pinchas, the quintessential religious zealot. At the end of last week's portion, Pinchas ben Eleazar ben Aharon, the priest, Pinchas for short, witnesses an Israelite, Zimri ben Salu, being publicly intimate with a Midianite woman, Cosbi bat Sur. He followed them into their chambers and slayed them both with a single thrust of a spear. Presumably, Pinchas was just following orders, because in the verses immediately preceding Pinchas's murderous act, we read this. This is Numbers 25, 1-5, the beginning of the portion. When Israel was staying at Shittim, the people, this is from the end of last week's Torah portion, the end of last week. When Israel was staying at Shittim, the people profaned themselves by whoring with the Moabite women, who invited them to the sacrifices for their God. The people partook of them and worshiped their God. Thus Israel itself attached itself to Baal Peor, and Adonai was incensed with Israel. So these women were luring them or bringing them into idolatry, worshiping this god named Baal Peor. So the Eternal One said to Moses, "Take all the ringleaders and have them publicly impaled before Adonai, so that Adonai's wrath may turn away from Israel." So Moses said to Israel's officials, "Each of you slay those of his men who attach themselves to Baal Peor." And then that's what Pinchas does. So, and then as if to remove any doubt that Pinchas was acting in accordance with God's instructions, after this murder, God brings about a plague that kills 24,000 people. And at the beginning of this week's Torah portion, which is called Pinchas, God bestows a Brit Shalom, a covenant of peace and security upon Pinchas, which means that his people will be the eternal they will inherit internally the priesthood. Zealots justify acting violently to any perceived threat to their worldview. That's what a zealot is. A zealot acts violently to any perceived threat to their worldview. We are well aware of the damage zealots can do as individuals as well as in groups. Rabbi Josh Weinberg of Artsakh, which is the Association of Reformed Zionists of America, describes zealots this way. He writes, "The unique characteristic of zealots and fanatics is that they possess unchecked power to undo systems, cause irreparable damage, and deeply disrupt societal norms. A violent act committed out of passion, zeal, or a sense of righteous indignation can wreak havoc on society and is incredibly difficult to prevent." The more I think about my answer to the question of what it would take me to leave Pennsylvania, I realize that the zealotry of Pinchas is hitting close, or too close, to home. The world is witnessing an increasingly violent battle between those who think that the fundamental rights of others come second to their rights, beliefs, principles, and deeds. In the United States, the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade is based upon Christian fundamentalist values, as are the antics of the people who harass and threaten patients outside Planned Parenthood or other reproductive care facilities. And the findings of the House Select Committee to investigate the January 4th attack on the U.S. Capitol reveals the efforts of zealots squarely aligned with anti-Semitic, racist, anti-liberal, anti-everything that we care about people. And although it happened a year ago, a one-page ad taken out by Hobby Lobby is once again in the news. In fact, I didn't know it was an ad from last year. I thought it was an ad from this year, but it turns out the ad came out last year on July 4th, and the ad was entitled "One Nation Under God," and it called for a Christian-run, but really Christian-only run government, and included taken out of context statements by American presidents. So there are a whole bunch of statements by American presidents. Some of them were misquoted, some of them were taken out of context. That was as if the our founding fathers thought that the country should be run by Christians only. It really doesn't matter if the ad was factually correct or incorrect. The fact that they ran it at all, that they thought to run it, is highly problematic, and I would characterize that as fanatic. In Israel, anti-Israel terror attacks, suicide bombings, and knifing of soldiers and civilians by violent zealots have resulted in the murder of countless innocent people. Sadly, Jews are not exempt from fanaticism. Haredi, ultra-Orthodox protesters disrupt the Women of the Wall and other egalitarian services all the time. The Women of the Wall every month, egalitarian services all the time. Not too long ago, a young Haredi yeshiva bacher blew his nose into the torn-out pages of a prayer book of a would-be worshiper at the Western Wall. As Rabbi Jeremy Marquise, recently of Pittsburgh, writes, "A zealot's justice is not justice." I really like that. A zealot's justice is not justice. So then, what are we to do? Because we must not sit back and allow our rights and the rights of others to be eroded away in the name of religious beliefs. We need a different role model, and of course the Torah portion delivers. A few chapters after the events with Pinchas, we read about the 5 daughters of Zelophehad. And interestingly, these women are named Machlah, Noah, Choglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. The 5 daughters of Zelophehad appear to Moses with a reasonable claim. As the land is being partitioned among the male Israelites, parts are being given off, the text tells us, V'tikravna benot Zelophehad, the daughters of Zelophehad step forward. They tell Moses calmly, reasonably, and with justice on their side, that their father has died, leaving no sons. They say, "Let not our father's name be lost to his clan just because he had no son." And they petition to be able to inherit their father's land. So the law up until this point allowed land to be inherited to sons, but not to daughters. Zelophehad had no daughters. Zelophehad had no sons. Moses didn't know the right answer, didn't know what to do. So he asked God, who said, "Ken benot Zelophehad dovrot?" Yes, yep, the daughters of Zelophehad are right. You should give them their father's holding. The daughters of Zelophehad, Machlah, Noah, Choglah, Milcah, and Tirzah, came forward. They came forward calmly, reasonably, and with justice on their side, and the laws were changed. There are lots of things to change. There are lots of things to change in this city, in this country, and even here in our community, also at Rodef Shalom. Everything. There's lots of things to change. But our role model is not a religious zealot. Rather, this week, we take our lesson from the 5 daughters. They step forward, they come forward, they speak calmly and reasonably, and they pursue justice. And so may this week, may we be inspired to step forward, to speak calmly and reasonably, and to pursue justice for all. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now with Aleinu, page 282. Please rise and body your spirit as you are able.
עלינו לשבח רצון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כהוגי הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוצר שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בכופר מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אין את מלכנו וזולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please remain standing if you're able. Kaddish is on page 294. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and all those whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. Vladimir Cherkassky, Claudio Carmiel, Jose Claudio Lichchevsky, Margot Asofsky, Edward Silverman. We also remember those who died at this season, years past, whose yahrzeit we observe on this Shabbat. Mildred F. Alexander, Paula Atlas, Philip Axelrod, Samuel L. Bigler, Marlene Brand, Shirley Fisher, Philip Freiberg, Joseph Gross, Faye Gurrence, Gerhard Hammerstein, Joyce Harris, Alice Harrison, Marshall Katz, Annette Kronick, Aryeh Melnick, David E. Moore, Dr. Herbert L. Needleman, Clarissa Papkin, Dr. Ellen Parker, Jacob D. Schwartz, Seamus Tate, Agnes Viscount, and Bernard Werner. Are there any other names for Kaddish tonight? Zichronam livracha, may their memories all be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad divrachu tei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaychon uv'yomechon, u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agalau v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach olam olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasa, tadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'rechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechamata, tamiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. You may be seated.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen.
In just a moment, we'll conclude our service with Kiddush and Motzi. There are snacks to go. Like to extend gratitude to Luke Ward up there on the balcony, who makes it possible for us to be seen and heard throughout the internet world. Thank you very much to Sean Nimmo. I should have introduced you at the beginning. Sean is substituting for Don McGahan. Don is part of a camp this week for people with disabilities, and he participates in it every week, and that's the one night he misses. Ariana Finkelstein has been with us. This is our third Shabbat. We're lucky enough to have Ariana with us. But our last one, it's been such a pleasure. It's been a wonderful pleasure to sing with you, to listen to you sing. You have such a lovely voice and such a beautiful presence about you. It's also wonderful to have your parents here. As I said last week, Lisa spends most of the time just like looking at you, Ariana, with just sort of amazement. Probably Alan too, but I can see it more. So we are so grateful to have had you, and it's unanimous. When you come home for a winter break, we want you to come and join us. Thank you to Julie and Tim for lighting candles. Happy birthday, and I'm glad you came to celebrate part of your birthday with us here. Tim says that his birthday celebration goes on all month, and right, that's what you told me today. And Julie, I know your birthday's not till next week, so you're celebrating early as well. We turn to page 5 for Kiddush and Motzi. At the end of services, please feel free to come up and have some challah, and if you would take your siddur with you, we would greatly appreciate it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. You can say it louder. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.